Arisike kaina yo, Amara chupu kaina yo, Nimono dua, Agamatorogi, Mama, Chie, Agamatorogi, Mama, Chie, Agamatorogi, If you leave us in this condition, if you leave us in this situation, if I ever be yours, some people don't get place to sleep, some people don't get food to shop. Mama, they wash picking the die. Things are getting out of hand. Mama, radio kind of all we need is your grace. We are no, we are America. Even in the Odoka Kataka, Mama, I don't know. I see no kitty. I was looking at Jehovah. Doctor, I want a kitty. I better chuku kaina yo. Arisike kaina yo. Amara chuku kaina yo. Nimono dua. Agamatorogi, Mama, Agamatorogi, oh yeah. You are the most high. Hallowed be thy name. You tell me, say, make I know that everything's gonna be okay. You are the father to the fatherless, the miracle working God. You make the blind man to see. You made the crippled man to walk. You are the lily of Galilee. You make impossible possible. You are the most high. Hallowed be thy name. Lord, you are the most high. Hallowed be thy name. Lord, you are the most high. Hallowed be thy name. I woke up strong on a Monday. I go to gym on a Tuesday. Then to
Good evening, good afternoon, and good night, whatever you're viewing us from. This is Family Connection International on the forum Keeping in Touch. As always, we here every Friday and every Sunday with a special guest to discuss their life-changing experiences. This weekend is 4th of July weekend. And as always, we have Ben and Levi, but Levi is behind the scene doing some technical adjustment. Hey, Ben, 4th of July weekend. What's going on at your end? And a schedule for barbecue tomorrow?
Hopefully I'll have the time to put some barbecue together. In the meantime, everything remains as constant.
That's
Happy
great.
4th of July to you.
Thank you. Happy 4th of July to all Americans as we celebrate the land of the free and home to the brave tomorrow, 4th of July. But Ben, I got a concern before I come to introduce our guests. This whole COVID-19 is increasing at your end. Mostly young people are contacting COVID-19. What do you hear from the doctors, the cause of young people being infested from your end?
Well, that's an interesting question because there is still this mystery about this COVID-19 and what is causing a lot of problems with it. However, the general consensus is, especially like for the area where I'm in right now, I'm in California. As you know, California was very upfront when this whole thing started. They put some measures in place that help us reduce the spread of the virus at the time. But it appears that people felt more relaxed and now started going out, doing the things that they were not to be doing, and maybe not taking the preventive measures like using the masks and not going into large gatherings. Those things were a little bit put on the side, and now people are trying to get back to those things again because just recently the governor had to issue order to start closing some centers. I mean, social areas of restaurants, bars, and gyms, and all those places now have been called back for the most part to close because they don't want it to spread beyond what we already have. So there are so many different factors that are causing this problem that still, for the most part, people don't know.
I know. This whole COVID-19 is like a new animal because even the doctors will tell you today don't do this. After 2 days, they tell you, say you have to do this. So everybody is still researching to find out the way out to this whole process. But to our viewers tonight, we just want to let you know that we have the privilege to have with us Mr. Joseph Kebbie, a CEO of VOX Libera and Proudly Liberian, an advocate and a philanthropist. Tonight we'll be discussing his life experiences and also about his family and his life-changing idea. People see you today as Joseph Kebbie, don't know where you began. So the whole intent of this program is to at least try to throw a spotlight on some of our brothers who are doing pretty well in their areas of professional studies and what have you, and tell us exactly how you got there. Because I know for sure, I know you, you know me, you never grew up in a family that had all the money and had everything. And we just want to start the ball rolling. I know time is fasting. Joe, we want to say welcome tonight and thank you for accepting our invitation to be here.
Thank you very much, Mr. Fasa. Thank you, Ben. It's an awesome privilege to be here. And I really want to say thank you for such a privilege to be part of this.
And to our viewers, if you have a comment, just drop us a comment. This is a Facebook Live podcast. We're going to read a comment. If you have a question, you can also drop us a question. Then if we have a number, you could go to our Facebook Live and maybe type the number there for our viewers. If they would like to call to contribute, that would be great for us. Joe, let's start with your family. Tell us your family structure because it's a family program, whether you are married, you have children. And tell us a little because I know you're married. About your beautiful wife.
Yeah, so I'm married to Genevieve Howard, now Kebbie. And then we have a daughter that is 4 years old, Fadia Kebbie, she is called. And yeah, so at the moment, of course, with COVID-19, families are all in disarray. And for the less fortunate ones, like some of us, we are somehow separated because of COVID-19. So the family is in the US and I'm currently in Ghana, where I reside for about 75% of my time, I'm based in Accra.
That's great. And we're so happy to have you tonight. I know you work with VOX Libera, which you are a CEO for, and Proudly Liberian. But before we go to talking about those areas, tell us, Joe Kebbie, I know after you graduated from high school, you were born in a West African country of Liberia, and you're telling us presently you reside in Ghana as your second home. I think you are able to navigate the system to get you to where you are today. Just give us a little gist of how you left Liberia after high school into Guinea, into how you ended in South Africa. At some point in time, I knew you were in South Africa, and you had an issue of even work permit in South Africa. You had to leave. So tell us some of these stories.
Well, I think my journey began when I was still young, and I remember one of the missionaries that I lived with some years ago. She said to me that when she saw me as a young boy, I told her that I wanted to become a pilot. So I kind of think from that age, I was very ambitious to move on and see what God had for me. But at some point, when the war hit, I was in Guinea. I ran into Guinea and survived there, became a refugee, started working with Common Service, the Refugee Counseling Center, and graduated from working there, and then decided to move to Monrovia. And then I started wherein, of course, my eldest brother, I want to pay homage to him, Solomon Kebbie, where he was living with some missionaries. And of course, he was very instrumental to getting me to live with the missionaries as well. And I felt that like high school was holding me back. So at that point, I was just wanting to leave high school and just go and explore the world. So I graduated from high school. The moment I graduated from high school, I was off. Of course, it didn't come as easy. I lived a little bit in Côte d'Ivoire, in Danone to be precise. I also moved to Ghana from Côte d'Ivoire. And then when I got to Ghana, I stayed at the Liberia refugee camp for some time, and then did what I call is with an institution called Youth with a Mission. So I did a discipleship training school. But again, I wasn't very satisfied. I wanted something more than that. So that quest for wanting more, yearning for more, led me to research for a photography school / videography, and where I found it was in South Africa. So I managed, through the help of God and of course my missionary parents, they kind of helped me somehow, and then finally got myself into South Africa. Worked there, and I was in school. I did my video production with an institution called Media Village in Cape Town. Spent a couple of years in Cape Town doing that. And after my video production school, I then decided to do radio. According to my school leader, they said I did well. I was the first to top the radio school. I didn't quite believe it, but that's what they said. And then after I graduated from the radio production school, I then started heading the radio department at this institution in Cape Town, South Africa, where I worked there for a couple of years. And of course, yeah. So that's a little bit of how I ended up in South Africa.
Thank you so much, Joe. I know you talk about leaving Liberia, Guinea, back to Liberia, then you went to the Côte d'Ivoire, Ghana, then South Africa. The last week we talked about trying to talk about culture. You crossed between different cultures into Guinea and back to Liberia, into Côte d'Ivoire, then to South Africa. I know the issue of South Africa. I know we talk about being racist, right? No South African, we are African, they are more racist than anybody part of the world. How was it like being South Africa?
It wasn't all that easy. If I remember, that was the only country that I had to carry a knife, a kitchen knife actually by my side, you know, just put it by in my pocket, basically, and carry that with me. And I remember one time just walking by the train track, and I'm like, you know, I'm prepared to protect myself if someone struck at me, you know. But we managed it. The whole idea of racism, that was the first time that I ever experienced that being in South Africa. But again, is how you make it. And for me, I accepted it that, look, if anyone have a problem with my skin color, go and complain to God. But if you attack me, then we will talk about it. Yesterday, yesterday, I was interviewing a young lady from South Africa, and I was just sharing with some of my encounters in South Africa when a student of mine called me kwele kwele, just a bad word for a foreigner, just, you know, somehow disgusting word. But again, that didn't throw me back because I knew exactly what I was in for, and I kept pushing.
I know, Joe. There's a lot to talk about tonight. I know your journey has not been an easy one. People see you, what you do today. We want to be looking at agencies you work for. We want to be looking at areas that you are CEO for. But let me go over to Ben. Ben, anything from your end?
Definitely. I do have something from my end. It's a pleasure talking with you again, Joe. We grew up together back in the days. We used to run on all the plum trees and the mango trees, the grapefruit trees, and all those things. We did them together. And it's interesting to hear that you had such an experience while you were in South Africa. That makes me to think that racism has no boundary. It has no limit. It's all over. Because you are an African and living in an African country and you were treated that way. It's an interesting story. And hopefully we'll get more information on that in time to come. However, I want to take a little step back from where you went into refuge because of the civil war in Liberia. I remember back in the days, you were fortunate to escape into exile, and that was basically in Gegedu, Guinea. And I also do remember how you were opportune at the time to do some humanitarian work. I would say, in fact, that was where it all started with you. Yes, and with Common Services and you being there doing the distribution to refugees with our late dad, Joseph Kangba, very well, Joseph Kangba. And you were there with him. I remember seeing you in the pickup alone and doing all those distribution. Now, tell me a little bit, Joe, how did your interaction in that environment prepare you to be the type of person you are today?
Very good question. Let me just backtrack a little bit and make this point that my time in South Africa, it was in fact the blacks that were very racist to me. I don't know whether that's a word for black being racist or whatever. So I just want to make that clear. And also South Africa gave me my very best. So it just needed to be put on the table. Back to Guinea. You know, I did a video with Common Service a few years ago. And in that video, I said that first job really set the pace for me. Yeah. Being very opportune, you know, to work as a part of the refugee counseling office with Mr. Thomas Gate, Omer Kangba, and just going out on the field. At that time, I didn't really know because like I was just gonna hustle, you know, right? But for me, that actually set the pace for me to actually see what I'm doing today. So I said in that video that Common Service, that opportunity that was given to me, actually propelled me to to expand what I'm doing now as a humanitarian, just being good to other people, because Karma Service was able to give me that first work through, of course, Karma Service, through the counseling center, Mr. Gatte, and lot of other guys that I really pay homage to.
That's good. It's always good to remember your roots. I mean, where it all began, where it all started, and where the foundation was laid. And it's good that you remember that very well. Working with Karma Services at the time in Guinea kind of set the stage for you to find yourself to be the type of person you are today. So tell us a little bit, give us a little journey of yours. From Guinea, what happened? What took you up from Guinea?
So it's interesting. Again, is that quest to want more, for that, telling myself that, you know what, I was born in this area, but God have given me a potential that I need to explore that potential. So after being in Guinea for some time, in fact, the person that replaced me at Common Service or at the counseling center was the late Honorable Eugene Bakar. So I left him there, and I'm like, you know what, I gotta go hustle, and some way, somehow, I need to make it. So I knew that my brother was in Monrovia, and I was like, man, I gotta go, man. So I spoke to my dad and my mom. Those were the two people that I really concerned, that I was concerned about. When they agreed for me to go somewhere, I'm gone. So they agreed. I spoke to them. I said, look, I want to go to Monrovia, maybe to go to school and see what I can do, and further look, you know, beyond where I am now. And then I set up, passed through Zerocole, crossed into Nimba and all those places, and I was in Monrovia, man.
That's great. So you decided to come back home and
yes,
to pursue your desire.
Yeah, instead of going the other way, I decided that, no, I'm not going to go back to Foya area. I'm going to go to Monrovia, where maybe, just maybe, there will be more opportunities there. But the question lies is that, I mean, if I sit down in my place and just thinking that, okay, maybe there's an opportunity there, and I don't make the move, chances are I won't see the opportunities that are there. So I took the chance and I went.
That's a good one, because opportunities will always keep coming, but when you are not ready, if you are not available, they will come and pass by you. Thank you for that insight. I appreciate it. Brother Fasa, you want to pick up from your end?
Yeah, thank you so much, Ben. I think it's a great discussion tonight. If you are there on our Facebook live feed, you have a comment for us, just drop a comment. We'll want to post that directly to Joe tonight. But if you also want to call and contribute, you can call WhatsApp +1 281 467 7465. There are a lot of people viewing our Facebook page. I see somebody saying just for the news. That should ring a bell to you. You should know who it is. Yeah.
That was my former boss, but
okay.
He's a great friend of mine, Lee Sonius.
Okay.
Yeah, great friend of mine. He and his entire family. Salute to you, Lee. I miss you guys.
Okay, great, Joe. So, Joe, let's look at VOX Liberia and Proudly Liberian, which company you are CEO for. Tell us what is VOX Liberia and what is Proudly Liberian?
So, I haven't served in different countries, and been very fortunate to have gotten a lot, you know, from different people, missionaries and people that don't even know me. My quest have been, how can I give back to my country? And then some of these young people that haven't been very fortunate to leave Liberia, how can I contribute to their lives, and of course building the nation? So the first company that we started is called Proudly Liberian, and as the name will explain it, is just being proud of who we are, and that the dream came from South Africa when I was there. They have something called Proudly South African. I took that idea and I said, you know what? I'm going to take this to Liberia. At the time, if you Google Liberia, most of the images that you will see will be the images of a wall and all kinds of images. And for me, I wanted to dominate the internet again with our colors, our national colors. So in the way that I would do that is to produce, you know, some paraphernalias of Liberia, whether it be flags, pins, anything about the national colors of Liberia. And I stood up on that campaign and just moved with it. Fast forward, I started feeling this thing, and later on I realized it's God telling me this, because it was like, I've really given you more. As a media person, how can you go back to your country again and then help in the process? It was at that point that my wife and I founded a company called VOX. I like to call it a ministry, but of course in Liberia is a company called VOX Libera. VOX, the word VOX is a Latin word meaning voice. So it's just Voice Liberia, but I like VOX better. So VOX Liberia is a media ministry. It's all around a holistic media ministry that have few elements. So there's a radio station which we started already. We envision to start a media library. At our universities in Liberia, you will, I stand to be corrected, but I don't know whether there's 100% media library. So we want to create that in Liberia. We have what we call Vox Share, and that came from Hebrews, the book of Hebrews, when it said, do not forget to do good to other people. So it's like the humanitarian arm of Vox Liberia. And we have the Vox Farm, wherein we hope to create an agriculture-based thing to feed our people and to be able to give to other people. So in a nutshell, Vox Liberia is a media ministry like none other, focused at the young people of Liberia.
Great. I think there's a lot you are doing right now in Liberia. It's like giving back based on what you have achieved from out here, giving, since you are able to learn a lot and maybe achieve a lot, you decide to give back to your country. But I'm concerned. You have a radio station now running in Liberia. You are not in Liberia. Your wife is not there. Who is running a radio station? How all this program you're talking about? Who's responsible to run them?
Right. So the first question that I asked myself was that if you tell me to start these things, and today I drop and I'm gone, how are they going to operate? And the clear answer was that you need to sell the vision to other people to understand the vision. And that's what I've been doing, that people get to understand the vision, that I don't have to physically be there for it to run. So I've gotten a group of people, it hasn't been easy. I've gotten a group of people that I'm working with that almost on a daily basis, that I'm in touch with them to know what is happening, and then to encourage them, to tell them, this is what the vision is. Let's move in this direction. And so far, so good. Like I said, it hasn't been easy. Working in Liberia is a tough thing, but God has been on my side, and we're doing it. I wasn't there recently when we did a relief work, but it was successful. It was, in fact, more successful than some of the humanitarian works that I have been part of in Liberia.
That's great. I know running a radio station in Liberia will require power, electricity. And even those who work at a radio station, are they volunteers or are they being paid? If so, do you have some special funding for your radio station, or is everything coming from your pocket? Maybe just tell our viewers, some other listening may want to contribute to help your initiative.
Right. So let me first say that when God gives you a passion and a vision, it is this whole vision of Vox Liberia is one of the strongest things that every day I go to bed and thinking about it and just praying and looking for people that can come alongside. One of those people been Lee Sonio that just said just for the news. He's on our board. But at this point, in terms of volunteers, we have volunteers, but of course, how can someone volunteer when they don't have, like 100% volunteer if they don't have anything at home? So we do pay some of the guys just a minimum amount. And then running the radio station, interestingly, we use generators. We are on generator number 3 already. And fuel, everything comes from my pocket at this point. I do have every now and then friends that support what we do, but it's not up to that at this point. So my wife and myself are hugely the financiers of this. In recent times, we are developing strategies as to how we can generate funds within. As a trainer, as a radio trainer, one of the things that I stress on every now and then when I go doing training in other places is that let's try as much as possible that our own people support what we're doing. So we're praying and trusting God that we will get support from within Liberia. Imagine if we got 2,000 people that would just support us of $1 a month, that would do a whole lot. And we're praying for that. God is faithful, and God will be able to do that for us, to bring the right people.
Absolutely. Because I'm right here in the US and I listen to a Christian radio station that is right here in New Jersey. And I always ask for donation because that is how people work. People depend on people donation. A little you can do to help somebody, come a long way. And Proudly Liberian, are you still producing those identities, those, what can I say, those emblems that represent Liberia? Is that still ongoing as we speak, knowing full well that July 26th is coming?
Yeah, we still do some work, but as most people would know in Liberia, majority of us, it's difficult for us to go into the thinking box. And what I was doing with Proudly Liberian at the time was I think about 4 weeks in a year, I spent time thinking and praying for ideas. But what happened was that at some point, the Chinese flooded the market. Other people from different areas flooded the market. And of course, we had work to do with the executive mansion at the time. And that was taken away by some Liberians that took our products and give it to another group of people as sample. However, we still have people that we work with, like we did these for the Monroeville, that's the Painesville City Corporation. And then we did these, there's a City Key. We did this for the Monroeville City Corporation, although we haven't worked with them for some time. And these are pins that are basically like a HIV emblem, but we did those for the Armed Forces of Liberia. And of course, this one, you won't see it very well, but this is a flag that we designed for when the former SSS was changing from SSS to the Executive and then Protective Services or so. So we designed that, and the hope was that we would get eventually contracts, to do that, but it haven't materialized fully. So at this point, we still get contract here and there, but it's not as we expected. So yeah, but life goes on.
I know very well, Joe. I know it's a very tough thing to do business in Liberia, but Liberian business entrepreneurs do complain. I don't know how can Liberia move into Liberia and do business if Liberians are not supported. But I heard once upon a time, somebody said that Liberians would not be spectators in their own economy. I hope what they said should be a reality. And if you're out there tonight, you have a comment, just drop us a comment on our last Facebook feed. Or if you want to call and contribute, you can call us on WhatsApp, +1 281 467 7465. Ben?
Talking about comment on Facebook, those that are watching us, I have a comment here for you, Joe, in particular, and it's from Nathan Bengo, who is asking that you tell us a little more about your time in Ghana and South Africa.
Yeah.
Is that something that you can elaborate on, please?
Yeah, yeah. So the first thing was that living in Liberia, I transited through Cote d'Ivoire, spent some time there, came into Ghana. What I didn't mention is that I spent a little bit of time in Togo with Solomon and his wife. And then I stayed in Ghana for a couple of years. It wasn't easy. I remember working at the internet cafe in Ghana. That was before I went to South Africa. I was working at internet cafe in Ghana, and I was being paid I worked from 7 a.m. to 12 midnight. I don't know how many hours there, but I was being paid about $25 at a time. And again, I say this to people that, life is not always easy.
Wait, Joe, let me get this clear, Joe. You said you have been paid $25 at a time. Are you talking about being paid $25 an hour or 25?
No, a month. A month.
Okay, we need to make that clear.
A month. And I wasn't 100% satisfied, but again, I was very fortunate because I could use free internet. My boss would buy maybe water, and when he buys some food, I would eat it. So I was very fortunate that I had a free internet to use, and no complaints, so I did that for a number of years. In fact, it was through that internet cafe that I was doing research and found the school in South Africa, and then apply. I didn't have to pay for internet. I didn't have to do that. And but again, I'm one of those people that try to focus on the positive side. That even during my difficult times, I try to focus that, you know what? There are a lot of people on the refugee camp that don't have internet. They have to go to internet cafe. In fact, if I'm talking about a negative side of it or the hardship, I remember one evening leaving from the internet cafe where I was staying, squatting with some friends. And this particular young guy, his uncle left the place and I was with him. I came back home and he locked the door. He said, I cannot enter. So, and anyone that knows Ghana, they know some part of Ghana, some part of Accra is a mosquito breeding area. So, and this particular place was one of those. So I slept outside on a porch that night. I was like, wow, this is quite interesting. But the next day, something within me told me that, you can't give up. You gotta keep pressing forward because you're one of the very few fortunate people that have left Liberia in working at an internet cafe. Free internet. What more can I ask for as a refugee boy? In South Africa, I went to South Africa with a 3 months visa. I stayed in South Africa for over 5 years. How did that happen? Through the help of God. But again, it was through persistence. I remember working with Media Village. Having done the school and all of that, working with Media Village. By the way, it was free of charge, no salary. So I worked 5 days a week at Media Village. And then 2 days in a week, I got a job at the aquarium, the Two Ocean Aquarium in Cape Town, where I used to do puppets, like puppet show for kids. And it was fantastic. I love it. It was during that time, again, I was very fortunate to meet the then President Thabo Mbeki. And apart from Thabo Mbeki talking with the CEO of the aquarium, I was the next person that he worked with in that aquarium for more than an hour. We were together because Thabo Mbeki at the time was deeply involved into the peace process in Liberia. So when he saw a Liberian in Cape Town, it was mind blowing for him. He introduced me to his wife and so on. So you can imagine meeting the South African president. I never wanted to speak to another person so that I can, you know, his perfume could leave my hand. So I was like on top of the world, you know. But again, you go back to facing the day-to-day scenarios of people just again taking you to be a foreigner and all of those things. But I never give up. Again, South Africa offered me one of the best opportunities. But you know what? It's almost the same with the United States today. There are issues and there are great opportunities. So in my life, I've learned to focus on the positives. In Ghana, for example, even now, there are issues. But again, I focus on the positives and move towards them.
That is very good. That is very good. I appreciate that. And again, for our listeners, if you have a question, you can just post us your question on Facebook Live, and then we'll be able to read it over to our guest, Joseph Kebbie. And if you want to make a call on WhatsApp, you can call us at 1-281-467-7465. Joe, before I let you go for a short movement, this question comes in. You being a visionary guy, because from what I see, you are really giving a very good image of Liberia, outside of Liberia and also inside Liberia. Having the projects or the organizations that you are undertaking in Liberia because you decided to go back home with something that you can make an impact in the society where you came from. What would be a point of challenge to say, this is the main obstacle that you are going through in doing this various projects, and what would be your advice to people that are in the diaspora that want to undertake projects of that kind in terms of going back home to implement some developmental projects?
Well, okay, so the challenge, I think as Liberians generally, we feel that we know everything, and then you try to educate someone that is difficult to accept. That form of trying to explain certain things to someone, to people. And also we love the quick fix, instant gratification. You know, someone want to instantly, it's like, I need to get this. I need to get this and instantly I should get it. And it's a challenge because there's nothing that will come instantly. It takes a lot of work. So going back into Liberia, I would tell people that, look, our own brothers and sisters, they will frustrate you. They will really, really get under your skin. But again, for me, it's like, what is it that God want me to offer this nation that I call home? You know, so that kind of keep propelling you to do more. That's what I would advise people, that if you're going back home to do something, think about this nation that God called you to. God born you or put you in that nation, and give back to the nation, no matter what the circumstances are. I mean, recently I was so tempted to shut down everything because, for heaven's sake, you buy a generator, in 4 days, it breaks down, you carry it back to whoever you bought it, they say, no, give us money, and then before we can change the engine. For heaven's sake, where will you find that? You know, and I remember another case for example, I did work for a representative in Liberia that I wouldn't call his name, right? And he owed me $5,000 And he said he won't pay the balance. If I want to, I should take him to court. I don't have time to go to court with this guy. So my advice is that the system is corrupt, but who made the system corrupt? We made the system corrupt, and we have to change it. So just going there by being nice to people, even if sometimes people will play on your niceness, but you have to keep being nice, you know. So it's not an easy fix, but it's like a paradigm shift, both for those of us that are going back to do something and those that are there. Yeah.
Joe, I must commend you for that determination that in the midst of all the ups and downs, you still have that passion to do something back in your home country, which is Liberia. Congratulations for that. Brother Fasa, you want to pick up from that end?
Thank you so much, man. Joe, let's look at your work. I know you work for 3 separate entities. Let's look at Christianity Works. What kind of work do you do for Christianity Work? We'll also look at Reach Beyond and Praise Life. And how do you put all these together, one person doing 3 separate jobs? But let's look at Christianity Work. What is it all about?
So Christianity Works, I first met the CEO some 15 years ago in the UK. And the whole point for me at that time was when he told me that Christianity Works was a ministry of Back to the Bible. I was like, wow, I used to listen to Back to the Bible from Airwa Radio, ELW Radio. So that triggered my interest to know more about Christianity Works. And then I listened to the content that they were producing in Australia. I was like, no, this got to be heard somewhere. So I took that content, I started distributing it around Africa. At that time, I actually had some connections around the continent. So I started distributing this radio content around Africa. Fast forward, 15 years later, I'm the Africa director for Christianity Works here in Africa. And basically, distributing content, radio content, Bible teaching, solid biblical teaching that is relevant to people in today's world. But also we also train ministries to do fundraising locally. So I have a colleague of mine that is based in Kigali that we work together on that. But I serve as the Africa director, pretty much from Cape Town to Sub-Saharan Africa. Last year, that expanded a little bit into the Middle East. That is the Egypt and all of those places to make sure that the footprint of a ministry go that far.
So are you saying that whatever materials you have, Bible content, are broadcast through radio stations?
Through radio stations, that's correct. And we also have television programs. So we currently on 2 main channels right across Sub-Saharan Africa that are also kind of supervise that. We have web content that we also produce and give out to the ministries that need web content. We make that available also that they can customize it to theirs.
Let's look at Reach Beyond. You Reach and Beyond. What is it all about? That's another group you work with.
That's right. Reach Beyond is a ministry that we term ourselves to be the hands and voice of Christ. So when as you will see, I work mainly with Christian organizations, pretty much, because that's where my calling is. So it's termed out, we have a name, being the hands and voice of Christ. As we know, when Christ was on this planet, he didn't only walk in places and perform miracles and so on, but he did things with his hands. So in that regards, we have what we call medical side of things. So we used to do a lot of medical outreach in Sub-Saharan Africa that was spearheaded by Lee Sonius and his wife, Michelle Sonius. And then a group of doctors that will come and interns that will come over, and then we do medical outreaches. And we also plant radio stations in different places. So wherein there's no Christian radio station, we go and help establish radio stations that don't belong to Reach Beyond. It's for the local church or whoever that have applied to Reach Beyond, say, look, we want to set up a Christian radio station in this area. So my job with Reach Beyond is training coordinator for Sub-Saharan Africa, basically radio training. So I've been doing that pretty much across the entire continent, wherein I go to do radio one-on-one, ranging from playing with editing something to trying to kill what I call radio syndrome, when presenters feel that they are too big. So I do those training and make sure that also tell people that if we have to be very creative as radio people, as media people, especially so as Christians, because in Genesis, God tells us that he created you and myself in his image. So that creative power that he used during the creation story is within you and myself. So why is it that Christian radio is not that creative? So I go around and challenging that with Reach Beyond. So pretty much that's what I do with Reach Beyond.
That's great. You do a lot of work. Just to let our viewers know, this is Family Connection International and a forum, Keep It in Touch, where we bring up a guest and try to put spotlight on his life journey to see his achievement and what he's doing to contribute to humanity. Praise Life. What is it all about?
Praise Life is I would term it to be more than just a radio station, but for explanation's sake, it's a radio station that play a lot of praise and worship music, but we're bringing people together, that every tribe and people will come together and experience Jesus. So Praise Life, we have our headquarters in Minnesota, the United States, and we broadcast globally via satellite, and of course with the FM affiliates that we have around the globe. In Africa, I'm responsible to spearhead Praise Life's operations in Africa. And I've been working with them just over a year now.
I don't know. I think I asked a question initially. You got two separate jobs, but it's all about bringing people to Christ. How do you navigate these three separate jobs?
This is what I say to people every now and then. Humanly speaking, we will see that those are, different entities and all of that. But I tell myself that I work for one entity, and that is a kingdom entity. And I'm very kingdom focused. However, if those institutions that I work with, if there's not a collaborating path in between there, then I find it difficult. I mean, I've refused some jobs because it's not just in line with what I do. So I take things that I'm able to do and look at it from one standpoint. That okay, you can say that I work as someone with Reach Beyond, Christianity Works, and Praise Life, and VOX, and all of that. But I look at it as one because it's a kingdom business. I mean, that's what that keeps me grounded. That when I sit down behind my desk, I work to the best of my ability and produce the best that only God can be glorified for.
Thank you so much, Joe. And there's a comment from Joseph Kebbie. He said, thanks for your hard work, Joe, and keep it up, my brother. And we just want to let me say this before I go over to Ben. He talked about kingdom work. Joe was born in a Christian home. The father was a pastor. The mother a strong prayer warrior. And the brother, let me just tell you a very brief story about a friend who just passed away. Ernest Vavi, myself, used to Joe has a brother who's a pastor, Joseph Solomon Kebbie, my namesake. So Bobby used to say that Solomon Kebbie walking, he don't shake before the Holy Spirit leave him. So he walked very slow. So that's the kind of fun Bobby and I used to make. You know, he said, well, Solo is walking, he don't shake because when he shake, the Spirit will leave him. So truly, truly well, Joe and his brother and the family have been in kingdom business from the onset. Man.
Thank you so much, Joe. And I was really want to make a follow-up on that when you said kingdom entity. What do you mean by kingdom entity? For some of our listeners that are not in tune with what it means to say kingdom entity. Is that something that you can elaborate on from your end?
Yeah, so I mean, it's deeply rooted from my Christian background, but for those of our people that might not understand that, let me just elaborate a little bit. Each one of us are brought here by God. That's a fact. I mean, some people will argue that, but and if we are here, there's a reason that each one of us are here for. You got to find that reason and say, well, this is my reason. I believe that God have brought me on this earth for my reason. For people like my brother Solomon, he started in preaching and all of that, and now he's doing a lot of hands-on. But for me, I'm like, okay, whatever it takes to bring people to the saving knowledge of Christ, whether it be using soccer, whether it be using humanitarian work, using radio, whatever tools that it takes to bring people to the saving knowledge of Christ. That is what I mean that God have called me to be that kingdom ambassador, if I should put it that way. Am I perfect? No, far from perfection. Because if I was perfect, Jesus wouldn't come. So, however, I'm called to do this, even in the midst of my imperfections.
Thank you so much, Joe. I appreciate that clarity that you just made for us and for our listening audience so that they can better understand what it means to be kingdom focused in this sense. You have a kingdom understanding as a child of God that you were brought into this world for a reason. God has a purpose for you. Thank you so much. So as we come into the end of our program for today, I wouldn't let you go without asking this question because I know your background. What are you doing to maintain your cultural and identity?
Well, one of the things is that number one, that's mine, you know. But at some point, I used to wear coat suits and so on, but nowadays I'm more into a lot of African stuff. Thank goodness for, I mean, my pastor, Dr. Mensa Otobe, I learned from him a lot. There's a man that wear a lot of African things. And when it comes to back home, I'm well connected. In fact, recently I instructed some of my people that every week they gotta give my mom, our mother, they gotta give her some data so that I can call her and speak to her, or she can call my brother, sister, and whoever, so that I wouldn't forget the kissing, or I wouldn't forget about Kosio, you know, and those kind of things. Make sure that I speak to mom and say, what did you eat today? You know, and just stay connected with that. It's pretty difficult for me that my daughter cannot, you know, speak Kisi at this point. By the way, I have two, but yeah, so they can't speak Kisi, right? I'm like, oh man, this is difficult. But yesterday was interesting. My mom called and I connected with my daughter in the States, and they were talking. And my daughter know the word Ise. So she was like, Ise, you know, and then I was interpreting that, translating and so on. But yeah, I'm trying as much as possible.
Keep it up, man. That's a good thing to do, and continue to identify yourself as a son of the sword from back home, and anywhere you go, you are identified to be that person. When was the last time you ate panya kumba?
Wow, I think when I was 2 years ago, I think. But you know what I did? I wish I had taken it from my kitchen to bring it here, but I brought kosyong. Kosyong is, for those of you that don't understand it, is Smala, I think we call it in Liberia. I don't know another name for it, but I have it in my kitchen. And I haven't cooked it for like 2 years now, but I kept it just to preserve it. Sometimes I go and smell it. Okay. It reminds me a little bit about my background. So, yeah.
Thank you so much, Joe. Pastor, you want to take it over from there?
Yeah, I just want to continue from there, Joe. I know you've been going all around Africa, planting radio station, doing training. How do you cut across one culture to another? Because like we're talking about culture. Yeah. What you were doing in Ghana, you don't do that in Kenya. What you were doing in Guinea, you don't do that in other places. How do you navigate? Because some cultures, if you want to speak, you first have to speak to the elderly people before you speak to the younger one. So how do you manage to navigate this culture across Africa?
One of the things that I do is I try to study the cultures first before I go in and get to know what is it that I can learn from them. And sometimes as a visitor, you are excused a lot by the mistakes, but just trying. And one of the two countries that intrigued me quite a bit is Kenya and Madagascar. Kenya, they have kisses there. So the moment I get there, I say to the Kenyans, I say, be careful because I'm kissy, but of course I'm from Liberia. And then they're puzzled because they don't know that. So I use that as a way of entry into the different cultures. In Madagascar, it's very similar to what we eat in Liberia. They eat cassava leaf and all of that. And that got me into the culture. So by the time I leave from there, everyone like, man, I mean, it's like you're one of us. So pretty much that's what I do. Just try to flow with the rhythm and try to learn as much as possible. Yeah.
So what would you say that, let's take for instance, for Kisi people, they got fixed name. For me, I'm Fala, they got Sad, Tamba, Fala. On the boys' side, they got fixed name. On the girls' side, they got fixed name. Like why the Bassa people, somebody born Monday, morning guy, somebody on Fridays, on Friday guy. How can we maintain this culture and tradition? I know your daughter should have a civil last name. Does she have a cultural name?
Yeah, and in fact, we were very clear with her before she was born. The number one, her name is Fadia, right? It has a little bit of Arabic meaning to it. It means it's the feminine version of Jesus in Arabic. But she's also called Sia, right? In other cultures, they will have names, but I can't remember. But Ghana specifically, we have names of the dead, whether it's a boy, they have Kojo and all of those, and I can't remember exactly what name is per day. But for those that study the names, the Ghanaian names, they will know the moment somebody is called Equia or Kojo or Kwame, they know exactly the day they were born. Yeah.
Okay, Joe, I think this should be a comment or question from Regan Numa Bombe. Being a native child from Liberia, Joe, why are you spending 75% of your time in Ghana instead of Liberia?
Well, it's because of the work that I'm doing. And, it's a very interesting question. And thank you very much, big brother. Recently, we did a humanitarian work in Liberia. And someone asked me a question and said, do you have any interest in like political interest or so? I said, no. And I further on explained to them. I said, if I was the president of Liberia, I would be very proud of a Liberian that is impacting Africa. Then discourage that Liberian from going to run for a political office. So in my mind, I don't really need to have my physical presence in Liberia to have an impact. The impact that we have in Liberia is as equal as if I was in Liberia. So, and again, it comes back to the question that, the deep question that I had to ask God and myself and say, look, if I die today, the vision that you have given me, potentially, other people might not understand it, but being aware gives me the opportunity for these guys to really learn and take it on. That if I'm normal, someone can run with that vision. I think that's one of the things that we need to learn. Not to say that you don't have to be there. At this point, my job cannot permit me, or should I say my job cannot permit me to be fully like my presence being in Liberia. But being in Ghana, and of course being in Liberia every day via the technology that is provided today, there's not a single day that I don't call Liberia, pretty much.
Thank you so much, Joe. I think it's about time to wrap up. Time is fast spent. It's a 1-hour program. I know we'll have a lot to talk about. Maybe we'll find out some time to see whether you can come back so we can still discuss some other issues. I know for sure that the technology is there. And I don't know how reliable is the internet in Liberia, because most of the things you do today are done through the internet or whatever. Can you give us your parting comment, maybe, and then something within I ask you tonight that you would like to maybe comment on, or maybe use it as your closing comment?
You know, there's a saying that one person born a child, but it takes the whole village to nurture the child. And interestingly, nowadays when the internet was coming, there was this talk about global village. So we live in a global village. And I have been very fortunate to have a lot of people that have stood by me and brought me to this fact. And I wouldn't leave from here without saying special thanks to all of them. It's difficult to name names, but every single person, whether someone that have given me water, someone that have sent me an email, someone that have, said something about me whilst I'm not there, I appreciate it. You guys are making me to grow and to become who God wants me to be. I'm not yet there, so please forgive me if I do things that really don't meet your standards. Just walk with me. And I appreciate you guys for the pleasant opportunity. This is what I mean we are called to do. You're doing a different part of it, and I'm doing the different part, but together we will serve our people. And your people don't have to necessarily be Liberian. Your people, any human being that you meet. God bless you, gentlemen. And look forward to serving at any point in time.
Thank you so much, Joe. We appreciate your presence tonight. I know it's almost going to midnight in Ghana. You're able to take up the time to be up this late. And as always, we come to you every Friday and every Sunday on this platform. If you are there viewing us tonight, you'd like to be here, just inbox us and tell us. We want to bring you up. This is a family program. We just want to know what you've been doing, how you get to where you are, and what are you doing to contribute to the community. On this platform, our policy is strictly there. We don't engage in politics, but we put spotlight on people who are contributing to the community and the society. And once you can build a family can be a better production into society. On behalf of Ben, Levi behind the scene, we want to say thank you, and join us on Sunday, 6 o'clock. We'll have a pastor on Staten Island who will be here to share his experiences. On behalf of the entire crew, we say thank you, and have a good night and good evening and good morning from wherever you're watching us from.